Yeah, wasn't the last one.
Alright, so this is good old session 5.
Hello.
No.
And we are here to discuss our readings.
Mm-hmm.
So, first up, we read various parts about Vygotsky and his theories. Should we play
Oh,
that?
yeah. I'll show us
I
that.
wonder if they can hear us.
Jesus, like, doesn't make it
I'm sorry, loud.
We should stop it.
No, it's okay. Keep
I
talking.
think we're good.
Okay.
There we go.
Sorry,
Okay.
Professor. So with Vygotsky, I think it was like more like his theories are obviously really legit and really relevant, but it's I guess more interesting when applied. Like I know I forget if it was which of you two it was, but one of you like applied it a lot to the second article.
Yeah,
Which
that
was
was
really
me.
which was really interesting. Oh, should we first talk about the community assets, Matt? That
Oh, the
relate to
project
project
knowledge.
knowledge. I also really liked what you had to say too. I was like, damn.
Oh, about like the needs and assets and
Yeah,
mixing
how,
that
like-
language.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something that's always kind of bothered me when we talk about like assets-based research and assets-based community development, and then to say like based on your assets map, what are the needs? It's like if you want to focus on assets, then why are you like then switching it to needs? Because that's more of a deficit approach.
Yeah.
So that was
So
a little
it's like trying to
contradiction.
find what you do have to figure out what you don't.
Well, it's just sometimes like the line between them, it seems like it really blurs because you'll be like, oh, so they have a hospital like 3 miles away. Well, that's not really an asset. They have a need of a hospital closer or something like that. Or say like, well, they have a bus, but that doesn't really do like account for extracurriculars. So there's a need. So it just gets, I don't know. Kind of mixed. It seems like.
something with community asset mapping though, it's so hard to only focus on an asset because really the questions that you're asking and the things that you're choosing to put into your map are coming from this idea of what we think is important to a community. Does that make sense?
Which is why I was
It's like everything that you like that we do and put into it is our perspective of what this community needs.
Which I think is part of why it's like really asked that you talk to people within the community, but then like also with that, how do you avoid like the outsider's approach? I mean, it's about framing, I guess, but still, like it just might be interesting if someone's like, "Hey, I'm making a map of all your assets. Tell me what your assets are."
Well, that's the thing, you know, like you should never do an asset map if you're not asked to do one.
Or
You know, or if they don't.
If there isn't a clear purpose.
Yeah, like
and I think
that's why I felt, you know, like, and I talked about this, you know, like in I think a couple posts ago
When we were first talking about the community.
Yeah, like I don't feel like 100%. Like I really like the idea of the like being able to use this tool further down my path. You know, when I really need it. But I do feel weird about doing it right now.
Yeah, so I guess maybe like part of it is just like learning those skills and how to do one.
Right,
But
yeah.
and I mean we also like we're just learning how to do this stuff, so it's so it's interesting. It'll be interesting how it all turns out. We'll find out in a week.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, and I mean the connection to precious knowledge and theory seemed fairly self-evident. I mean just
That's
just focusing on like the assets of the population and trying to develop like positive self-identity. But I mean, precious knowledge also was addressing like needs. The fact that I mean, people weren't able to like learn about themselves and see themselves reflected in the curriculum. So.
Well, I think that the one like difference between our community assets and then the precious knowledge thing is that the people in precious knowledge were already like existing in the community, and so from like their understanding and experience and basically existence within that community were they able to do that, and you know we obviously are not.
Oh my gosh, why didn't we just choose a community we're a part of, like the ESC or?
Oh my god,
why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
Or like I don't know.
Maybe
But
it's
is
supposed
that-
to be more neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least I know with you too. Like you said, you worked in like Sterling Meadows before, so I mean, whether you're a part of it necessarily, I mean, you still at least have the background with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's better than, I mean, I live in the Roosevelt neighborhood, but I would not say I'm like really
You're an active member.
I don't go to
A
the,
flag carrying,
Yeah,
Roosevelt
I know
member,
all the
card
names.
carrying, yeah.
yeah,
I've worked at the Boys and Girls Club.
yeah,
Community
we're not the
Hamburger.
most outspoken members at like the neighborhood meetings. So, but still, I mean, at least it's something. Yeah, well, good stuff on community assets map, so. How about your boy Vygotsky?
I'm not gonna lie, I just had a really difficult time, like, maybe because it's just such a dry reading, that I had a really hard time connecting with it and getting, I still don't feel like I really know what I'm supposed to get
Well,
from
why don't
this.
we, I know I would personally like to discuss like at least a couple of theories that I was kind of like, oh, I kind of understand,
Yeah.
I'm kind of not.
Sure.
Let me just find it real quick. 'Cause I think it's the last one, but I was like,
For me, it was hard to like see each of the individual theories that they had broken down as individual theories, because I felt like they kind of built on each other, and I took away more of a connected view than a, oh, I understand the theory of value, I understand the theory of knowledge. It was just like,
Yeah,
generally understand what Vygotsky was talking about.
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting, because I think we had to like learn about him in like adolescent development.
We did, but he was
Oh,
like
we
2
did.
paragraphs in
I
a
know.
textbook, which is something that really bothered me, because I feel like his theories are really applicable to a lot of what we do as teachers, but we really did not focus
Yeah.
on him. It was just like quick overview.
I feel like we spent more time on like B.F. Skinner, who's like, I feel like I mean, not saying some of this stuff isn't good, or I don't really know, but I mean, just like some of that is like pretty problematic for including in teaching. I mean, I guess the like psychology of it isn't, but anyways, he's not who we're reading about, so anyway. Yeah, it was kind of hard with like not seeing how each is applied necessarily. He did use like examples, but I mean, it sounds like he was pretty good, especially I feel like for his time, for understanding like how language and culture plays a role in learning.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I was on board with this. I was not reading this going, I question that. It was like, yeah, okay, I see that. I understand those connections. I appreciate those connections. Like, he really had everything centered around cultural identity and how that influences everything. Like, nothing exists on its own. It's all tied to a context.
Wait, are we still talking about Vygotsky?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, you
It
definitely.
just connects well to the other reading
The
we
other
also
reading,
did.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
You definitely like expect, you know, some things sometimes out of these readings, but and maybe across them. But I really liked the theory of transmission. You know, this whole idea of like more knowledgeable other instead of like really like constricting the person, like, you know, and he acknowledges that it can come from someone who's like even younger than you, which I think is really like often neglected many times. Like it's in our society, like it's really almost impossible to learn from someone who's younger than you are. Which is why I think we have in a bunch of classrooms this like dynamic of like, okay, I'm the adult and you're the child, and like I think a lot of the banking theory comes from that kind of thinking, you know, that I'm an adult, therefore
Yeah,
I know smarter
it's a
than
very
you are.
static view of learning too. Yeah, and I mean it's interesting because like I've always thought of knowledge transmission as kind of like in a negative context, like as in the teaching where you're like, okay, this is what you need to know, learn it, and like rather than kind of actively constructing knowledge, which I do think he definitely I think does believe that like knowledge is actively constructed, but I don't know. It's just interesting because I've always thought of knowledge transmission as a bad mode of teaching.
But I like how he focused on the collaborative
Yeah.
aspect of learning.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, everything he was talking about was like through interactions with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, society is the bearer of cultural heritage without which the development of mind is impossible. So kind of like, what's this in, I don't know, like what other terms is that?
I was going to get my iPad to refresh myself on what I wrote. And I realized we're using it to record.
Here.
Just because I read I would focus on yours, all is not really mine, and I that it's been a week. I definitely had more to say about the second article. It was one of the rare ones that was actually kind of riveting.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and something for me, it was really interesting in a context that I'm not particularly interested in, which is obviously, okay, I'm in ELL, so I'm interested in language development, but this was really languagey, it had to do with
Yeah,
really the
for sure.
construction of language and words and stuff like that, and I don't know, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And also I just don't understand how people can be so smart
I
to
know.
make those connections between, or figure out what these piraja people are, is that what they're called? Pirajan or whatever. How do you figure out another
I
person's
know.
language if you have no basis from which to construct that understanding?
Well,
Yeah.
it was super cool, they
Yeah.
did give an example of how you do that.
Yeah.
You just kind of make them repeat a bunch of stuff in a different context, the
Mhm.
stick
Yeah.
example.
The sticks, yeah.
It was super interesting. It also was interesting how, because I don't really have a positive view of the evangelical trips into other countries, but it's weird how that's actually been a vehicle for I guess understanding different languages, which isn't it's not really a positive thing. It's just, in fact, it's definitely not a positive thing.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting how, how a lot of what this guy learned was from these schools, but yeah, Everett was a weird dude.
Yeah, his whole life, his trajectory of life and everything he experienced, and I don't know, it's all just
It makes me reflect on what it's what if all articles were like this? I don't know, just did a good job of having a narrative and actually felt
Putting
there's
information in?
yeah.
What it does good is that it sort of stands out because it stays away from the whole academic.
Yeah.
It makes it more human.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The whole process seems something that we can almost relate to,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I don't know, with the anomalies and the whole Chomsky theory with this language, Pirajan, it's just I don't know, really proves that we still have a long way to go.
For sure. Yeah. How complicated that word is.
And it manages to compare two cultures without attaching badly to one or the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
It really shows how beautiful this culture is,
Mhm.
even if I I know I wouldn't want to live, in that situation because that's not my culture, right? But it still shows how beautiful it is, it shows, I really, really like their appreciation for the present moment, and how their language reflects that. I just,
Mhm.
well, I particularly, I really, really like all that linguistic stuff. Yeah, so I was really, really enjoying this
I
article.
think it's because it describes it in a way that it's not looked down upon as you see. It's oh,
Yeah.
it's different and it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely hit home. There was because one thing that I read about was just the reactions to Everett's study. Part of it was from the Chomskyites, which is interesting how it's almost a
Club.
yeah, a club that is not being attacked. And then others who were saying that he was kind of portraying them as primitive. And I'm sure there's probably some kind of problematic elements his analysis. Very Western lens, but I think he did a good job of showing it's it totally permeates their lives and their way of knowing, and it's in a very unique way that just kind of transformative.
Well, you can tell, by the way he reacts when there's someone else there and they try to make them do something, and he's like, they don't do that.
Yeah.
The way he reacts, he's so accepting. well, I don't know, like, how long it took him to be like that, you
Yeah.
know, but he's super accepting of, like, you know, they don't do that. That's not part of the culture, you know, and, like,